So hi, I'm Andy Mitchell. I'm the Chief Executive of Tideway, which is the new sewer under London. I think a lot of people might recognise the super sewer name a little bit more. What we're doing is building a new 16-mile sewer under the Thames to collect and transport safely to Beckton Sewage Treatment Works the 40 million tonnes a year of sewage that currently gets discharged into the river. And conceptually, it's quite simple. At those discharge points, we build a shaft which drops the sewage down to the level of the main tunnel, and that tunnel collects those outfalls and heads off east. It's a £4 billion project. We're 2.5 years in. Our first tunnelling machine has arrived on site. Our first shaft is at full depth, and it's the full production year ahead for us. We hope to be starting commissioning sometime in 2021, and so far so good.
So I'm Nick Sumption. So I'm the Tideway Industry Innovation Lead. So Tideway committed to have a strategy by which they'd have sustainable innovation for the whole of the infrastructure industry. So once Tideway project's finished, the construction, who's going to pick up the next stage of innovation? So I was brought in to actually help create that legacy by having a sort of a cross-industry approach to innovation, sharing and collaborating.
I think when we talk about innovation, it's actually quite important to understand what we mean. And quite often people think that's about some really newfangled technology that's never been done anywhere, and of course it could be that, but actually an awful lot of innovation is just understanding what other people do and seeing its application in your world. And you could in some ways almost call it just sharing of best practice. So there's quite a wide range, but why is that important? Well, we all need to find more effective ways of doing things for the obvious reasons of that, keeping the bills down, paying less money for the works that we build. So that's an obvious driver, but I think if you look more broadly, for me, a culture of creativity, a culture of challenging. About the worst thing that you could ever say is because we've always done it this way. And really, I wholeheartedly believe that a company and a group of people who are always looking for better ways to do things is a more productive, a more cost-efficient outfit. So it's a culture, and it's an output in terms of some actually good ideas that will make a difference.
Do you have anything to add, Nick?
Yeah, what I would say is innovating makes the world interesting. So maintaining the status quo doesn't make you leap out of bed in the morning, but actually knowing that you can really change and transform things for the better, whether it's time, safety, financial, to actually know you can do things better and differently to how they've been done before makes it really exciting. And in these modern times, it's really important that pace of change is getting increasingly quick. So you have to be able to innovate, otherwise you'll never keep pace with anything.
Okay, so I3P, the Infrastructure Industry Innovation Platform, was actually something that didn't exist 18 months ago. If you go back in the history of this, it was Crossrail that, as far as we're aware, was the first major project that said we need an innovation program and an approach. Previously, perhaps people thinking that you needed to be a long-term permanent company to have an innovation program, and that you haven't got enough time on a project to do that. And I think Crossrail proved that that's not necessarily the case. And the Crossrail Innovate 18 platform, which included all certainly the tier 1 supply chain, was a very successful process. And they've got the stats that show that actually the investment in innovation more than paid for itself, and so it was a really good proof of concept, if you like. And so really for Tideway coming along as, okay, the next big project, it was obvious that what we should do is not try and replicate, but just take it. So we took the platform, and that led us to what we call the big think, which kind of makes sense for us. But as Nick says, at the same time recognizing that as long as this is just a big project sequence, we're not really moving the industry. So some 18 months ago we said, okay, well, on Tideway we'll happily anchor this, but the trick has now got to be to get the rest of the industry engaged. I've got to say that wasn't difficult. I think everyone recognizes that the industry needs to change. Infrastructure, construction, call it what you like. There's a whole bunch of disruptive forces out there in terms of technology change, in terms of the government's expectation of productivity, and the evidence that the construction industry has lagged behind in productivity as compared to many other industries. So there was a lot of appetite, a lot of willingness to get stuck in, and here we are, just over a year later, and we've just had an i3P forum session with 26 members around the table. So that's 9 key clients and supply chain as well. And what we've just seen is a huge amount of progress in the year, a huge amount of enthusiasm, the emergence of common themes that we all recognize as important to work on, but critically important to work on together. So rather than all sat in our own little spaces innovating away, why don't we frame the common question, and then why don't we put our resources together to make more progress? And that's what's happening.
I mean, the whole ethos for i3P was collaborate to innovate. And of course, the more you collaborate and the more you share, both in terms of breadth, in terms of membership, and depth in terms of everyone within the organisation, the more ideas and innovations you can get, and the better and the deeper the conversations about innovation and how you can really change things. So we started relatively small, but we've built very quickly. We've structured our thinking around the 3 strategic themes from the Construction Leadership Council, which was digital transformation, manufacturing construction, and life cycle performance. And if we focus on those 3 areas in terms of sharing, collaborating in innovation projects, we really believe that we can transform our industry for the better, not just for the companies and the people within them, but for the public and for the paying customer.
What has been fascinating is quite how much everyone has understood these key headings. We could have had any 3 headings, but they kind of made sense, and the whole digital piece is pretty obvious. But whereas a few years ago we were just talking about BIM, or I suppose previously CAD, then BIM, what we're now talking about is the crossover between that and productivity. So you start talking about robotics, you start talking about AI, remote control of plant, the whole off-site manufacture piece, which of course means design and manufacture and a changing of the way people think. And these themes are coming out. There's some smaller projects, and being honest, we were keen to have a few smaller projects that could be delivered in sensible timescales to sort of proof of concept really, and to show that we can get to results. So at the moment, one of the smaller projects is one about wearable tech. And there's an awful lot of it out there, with an awful lot of claims as to the benefits of wearable technology in terms of people's health or productivity or location or safety around plant and all that kind of stuff. But there's no coherence to all of that, and as any individual company is looking at it saying, well, where do I go from here? How do I understand it? Does that make sense or not? But that is a problem that every single member has. So as an example, what i3P are doing is working together to form a view as to what do we really need, what's actually important, where is the bang for the buck here, but doing that collectively and rigorously in a way that it'd be difficult for any single company to do. So you've got that sort of example, but another project is talking about the whole modularization piece, off-site manufacture, because again, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, that's a big deal. We're aware of the changing technology, we're aware of the availability of workforce, and obviously the whole cost and quality and safety benefits of not doing things on site if you don't have to, and that's a very common theme. That's obviously a much bigger project, but nonetheless one that needs working on. So there's quite a range of things that we're looking at the moment.
And another example is materials. So whichever sector you're in, whichever subsector, materials are important to you. And there are going to be some common capabilities that are across sectors where you can learn from each other. So you need the right partners, not from just within your direct supply chain, or perhaps supply ecosystem would be a better phrase, but outside of your sector. What have others done? So on our Discovery project program, of which the wearables is the first that's come out of the blocks, we've been working with the Manufacturing Technology Centre, which is one of the high-value manufacturing catapults in Coventry, working very closely with their team, and that starts to inform us about how we can actually apply the lessons already learnt from maybe aerospace, from aeronautics, from automobiles, to actually apply those in perhaps the less obvious sectors. And infrastructure and construction's got lots of possibilities to benefit from that learning.
Yeah, you know, I think a big part of this is this communication, and the you know, there's no shortage of people who are prepared to share their thinking and share their ideas. The difficulty is the amount of time people have to reach out and find them, and in some ways the i3P piece is just a place to go, where you can find people, and then it doesn't take too long to figure out who's doing what and who may be doing something that is of use to you. So, you know, there's quite a few dimensions to this, but actually just being, you know, the place where I'm likely to find some help, you know, that's a big deal in itself.
I think one of the key things is not to constrain it, to keep it unconstrained, so that you're not bound by the current rules and thinking. But in order to innovate, you've got to actually look elsewhere, look outside, sometimes look within yourself, to actually how you can actually change the way that you're thinking and apply, make yourself available to be challenged. And we talk about i3P being a safe space to have that challenge, where you're amongst like-minded friends, organisations, and you can actually start to really push the boundaries as to what is possible and challenge each other.
So one key message, I think I'd probably say two things to that. One is, it is not acceptable to say we've always done it this way, there must be good reason. And I think my advice would be almost anything you look at, rather than simply doing what other people have done before or what is industry practice, surely one of the first questions has to be, how could this be done better? And if you stand back far enough before you get stuck in, ask that simple question, ask around a little bit. I think we'd all be amazed at quite how many other ways there are of doing things, and who knows, some of those are likely to be better.
And I would repeat the strapline that we use for i3P, which is collaborate to innovate, because those two are inextricably linked. You have to be able to reach out, and you have to be able to listen.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much both for joining us for one of our Spark Innovation videos.
Thank you, Freddie.
Good job. Thank you.